All right. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Jeremy Snyder. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called FireTail. We work on API security, and this is a little bit of our end of 2022 analysis and some of our thoughts moving into 2023. I won't be going deep into the details on some of these points today because we've got a full blog post on our website where you can check this out. But hopefully this helps to provide some highlights and some of our thinking about where the world is in terms of macroeconomic conditions, in terms of changes to the world itself, some of the venture capital climate changes that we've seen over the last year, and what's going on in cybersecurity and specifically with API security. We won't be talking too much about API security today because we've got a separate follow-up that we're going to be doing on that topic. Just to note, you've got a chat box there. Drop your questions in as we go. We'll try to take some time for Q&A towards the end of today's presentation. So let's start with kind of a view on 2022 as being a year of transitions. And I want to analyze this from a few different perspectives, starting with kind of the economic situation, what went on with the market, why do we think that this is a year of transition, what happened in the world, and then specifically venture capital. So if we think about, some of the big trends that have been affecting the entire world over the last couple of years, obviously COVID-19 is kind of first and foremost in our minds. When we take a look at the time frame of 2022, we just see a vast drop from entering the year with really record infection numbers and kind of ending the year with like really low points, very gradual. And if you look at both kind of the number of cases and the volume of hospital admissions, certainly the effect of the vaccinations has been very, very positive to lower and really stabilize the amount of hospital admissions. So we could see a transition and kind of return to life pre-pandemic in many, many different ways. Certainly aviation is one of those areas that really highlights it. Obviously 2020 and 2021, the aviation sector was in a dramatic down spike based on people not traveling because of the pandemic. Well, what we saw in 2022 is that we started to get back to pre-pandemic levels. About the midpoint of last year, you can see here that we were at about 80% of pre-pandemic. Obviously, entering 2023, things are still subject to change, but the current forecasts are that actually air travel will recover beyond where it was in 2019, which were record levels. So we know there's this kind of transition back to normalcy. Of course, one thing that we haven't really spent a lot of time analyzing is some of the kind of world changes outside of the economic world. But certainly there are events going on in Ukraine and other places that still definitely need to be watched. When we think about the workspace, one of the things we saw was really a push along with that transition in normalcy to maybe get back to the office. But this was kind of a double-edged sword. There were a lot of companies that faced severe backlash from people who didn't want to return to the office or weren't ready to return to the office. And kind of this trend of quiet quitting of people who realize, hey, if I'm just going to get pushed like this, and let's say some of that flexibility that I've enjoyed in working from home is going to be taken away from me, is this really worth it? And so it's been very weird because there has been this kind of drop in the overall markets. We entered 2022 with the North American Technology Index and the overall Internet Composite Index, which includes a number of overseas internet firms as well, at real record highs. And the performance for the year from both was down 35% and down 45% respectively. So there's all these kind of mixed signals going on, positives, negatives, return to normalcy, and yet not a return to normalcy in the working environment. We saw mass layoffs in the technology sector. More than 20,000 employees laid off only in the beginning of 2023. The number for 2022 is much higher. You can see it there on the chart. But at the same time, actually unemployment is at 3.5%. And, I lead a technology company and I talk to a lot of my peers and we're all experiencing the same, which is that it's just as difficult to hire now as it's ever been, maybe even more so. So there's this, again, this kind of dichotomy, this kind of juxtaposition of two sets of facts existing in the world that I think leave a lot of people with a lot of uncertainty around what exactly is the state of play regarding the economy, regarding the world at large, regarding employment, et cetera. So it's definitely been a year of transition from these crazy highs that we had in 2021 through 2022 and coming into 2023. And frankly, we'll have to see how a lot of the year shakes out. One thing that of course affects us as a venture-backed company, and we're certainly very cautious of, is what's going on in the venture landscape. We know that there had been record venture investments in 2021, despite again being in more or less a remote kind of virtual working environment. Venture is historically something where there's the classic path of showing up and doing a big pitch in front of a bunch of venture partners. But in 2021, I think it was proven that you don't need to go through all those steps in order to build a business and raise money to try to go out and solve a problem. So specifically, it slowed down in the second half of the first half of 2021, so Q2 of 2022 rather. And what we've seen coming into the end of the year is that cybersecurity investments are also very mixed. There had been record investment in cybersecurity from 2021 coming into 22. And then we saw a drop off towards Q3 and Q4 of last year. But at the same time, what we saw is that it is still possible to get funding in relevant spaces. So if you are actually solving an emerging problem, the path towards venture funding is not actually closed off to you. There may be a slightly higher threshold. There may be some, let's say, adjustments on valuation. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people are shaking their head or scratching their head about rather is what's going on with all these kind of second and third round companies whose valuations had been driven up greatly. Now, these are valuations on paper, so it doesn't bear or it doesn't have too big of an impact on things like public markets, but venture markets tend to follow public markets, and any kind of adjustment will have some repercussions throughout the overall landscape. So I know it's a weird type of analysis because on every single point, you've got some kind of positive signs and some negative signs. And I think that is just the nature of where we are. So let's think about going into 2023 and thinking about the cybersecurity landscape, because what we know is that cybersecurity is actually still a priority. And I highlighted an article here. It's linked in our post. You can have a look from there, check it out. It's on Forbes. And there are 4 reasons that the cybersecurity sector could remain recession resilient. So this is assuming that we enter a recession in 2023. Why would the cybersecurity space not be as impacted as some other spaces? Number one is, of course, the growth of technology. We've experienced this, I think, at a faster scale than in previous years over the last 3 years. If we think about the amount of technology that has really infiltrated our daily lives when it comes to just day-to-day transactions, ordering food, conducting business, paying your bills, interacting with your local government, so much of that has moved into technologically mediated interactions. It's just been a massive ramp up in the adoption of technology. And this is around the world, by the way. This is not North America specific or European specific. This is really worldwide. We've seen this. Even kind of emerging economies have really very quickly shifted government services online. Number 2, the cyber battlefield. So the cyber battlefield, frankly, kind of has 2 components to it. One is, of course, the nation state. There's definitely a lot of cyber implications to what's going on in Ukraine. But number 2, and I think this is probably more impactful for a lot of you, is what's going on in a business context. Whether that is the theft of intellectual property from one business against another, or whether that is kind of the breach of your PII, your personally identifiable information, through things like ransomware and extortion and what have you. So there's definitely this criminal aspect to the cybersecurity landscape as well. And if anything, what we've seen over the last few years is that's just continued to escalate. It's become easier and easier to become a cyber criminal in a way. And so that makes it kind of doubly important to really defend against cyber attacks. Number 3 is government action. I think those of us who have been in cybersecurity for a while have been waiting for government to get more involved and to start setting some mandates and some directives around what is minimally acceptable levels of cybersecurity, what needs to happen to make the overall kind of landscape more secure and safer for everybody who's online. And we finally started to see that. We've seen, let's say, White House initiatives. We've seen enforcement around GDPR. We've started to see companies being taken to court by local governments for failures in things like cyber breaches, et cetera. And number 4 is really the expanding ecosystem. The cybersecurity ecosystem has now become one that is entrenched with business. It's no longer kind of a standalone function that is a support function. It is now something that every business recognizes that they need to have as part of their business operations. So it's kind of expanded outside of its historical place within most organizations. And I think that's important to keep in mind when you think about the outlook for cybersecurity. So last but not least, I wanted to spend a few minutes kind of talking about, FireTail, where we are as an organization and what kind of some of the next 12 months might look like for us as we think about this. So we're obviously a very young organization. We were founded in February of 2022. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary, which is tremendously gratifying and exciting for us. We raised a seed round that was announced earlier this year. You can find information about that on our website. We're now up to 11 employees split across 4 geographies: US, Canada, Ireland, and Finland. And we look to continue to expand our team. We finally got out into the world and we were able to go participate in events, which is for young organizations often one of the best ways to get feedback from customers, which is so crucial at this early stage. So we were out at 2 Black Hat events. We were at API World. We look to continue to engage with people, and we got the first version of our product out the door, solving real API problems for customers in the real world. So looking forward, we're looking to continue a lot of that positive momentum. We are hiring in a few different areas. We're also wrapping up the first cohort of our design partners, which is kind of closed beta customers. We've got a few of them that we've been working with. We're just about ready to bring on our next batch of customers to go through that. We do have 4 events planned for the year. The Cloud Native Security Conference, I think I have a typo there, sorry for that. Black Hat US, Info Security Europe, and AWS Reinforce. On the product side, we're going to be a little tight-lipped about that. It's going to be an evolution as we go, and there's some things that we're working on that we're really excited about. So that's a little bit of our analysis of 2022 and 2023. And I want to kind of close this before we get into the Q&A with 2 thoughts. So one is, was 2022 a weird time to start a company? And I'd like to highlight this quote from Dave DeWalt, who, as many of you will know, is a longtime visionary in the cybersecurity realm. One of the things he said recently is that great companies get started during down cycles. We were kind of in the early part of that down cycle, but we'll take it and we'll see where that leads us. Second is, cybersecurity is not a pickup game. This is something that companies need to be committed for. You really need to be committed or you go home. And this is from Bob Ackerman, who's a longtime venture capitalist in the cybersecurity world. And we really agree with that. We're really a mission-driven organization that is really looking to make security better. One of the things that you may see from us is our open source library. I would encourage any of you who might be interested to go out and pick that up. And that is something that we put out there to make APIs more secure for anybody who needs them. You may never decide that you want to use our commercial offerings, but feel free to check out our open source library, get that installed. It'll make your APIs more secure by doing a set of very important checks against API calls in real time. With that, I'm going to go over to Q&A. I'm going to drop into the chat here real quick. First question here. On your cybersecurity outlook slide, you mentioned minimal acceptable levels of cybersecurity. How do you think that is changing between last year and 2023? Great question. This is where I would say that the government regulation is actually going to have a large impact. And the second thing that I'm going to say around this is that I think increasingly business customers are starting to be more demanding when it comes to cybersecurity. In the past, there was very often a practice that was kind of commonplace, which was, any vendor that you're looking to sign up with, any company that you might want to be a consumer of their product or service, you would ask them a set of security questions, maybe send them a questionnaire. We have seen those questionnaires become more and more demanding, and we've actually seen that a lot of the demand nowadays is no longer just about show me or tell me that you've got controls in place. I want those controls to be audited and attested to. So we've seen increasing demand for things like SOC 2 compliance, where it's not only about your cybersecurity controls, it's about your business process and your operations to make sure that even if you've got good controls in place, your operations don't accidentally mess things up. So we've seen a lot of emphasis on that recently. And of course, I think the government regulations are going to be really impactful. A lot of companies will kind of get a little bit of a wake-up call when the end of 2023 comes and there are deadlines for implementing some of those government standards. Question, you're looking to hire more staff in 2023. Can you tell me more about the company and what it's like to work at FireTail? Well, I mean, for me, of course, it's obviously very personally exciting and gratifying. But what I can say about our team is that we are a distributed team, distributed across those 4 geographies that I mentioned. We have what I like to think of as a pretty high performing yet fun company culture. So we are driven to deliver our product and to deliver value to our customers. We take that very, very seriously because we know we're helping them to protect critical data on their systems. But at the same time, we definitely have a vibe of teamwork and camaraderie. We bring our teams together about once a quarter to kind of review the things that we've done, review challenges going forward, collaborate, brainstorm, work together, and also to have fun when we do that. So I think it's a great place to work. If you are interested, please do reach out to us. Next question, can you trial or demo the product? If so, how can we do that? Yeah, absolutely. There are buttons on our website, fill out a contact form, request a demo. We can definitely organize a free trial for you as well. More than happy to do that. Look, I think it's on the top of our webpage. You should be able to find a button for that. And if not, just go to the contact page and fill out a form there. Okay. Fantastic. Looks like that was all the questions that we have. If you'd like to view the whole review that we've put up, please check it out at this URL. It's firetail.io/2022-review. And our analysis will be online now. And with that, I will say thank you very much. Any companies that are looking to jump in on that second cohort to get a chance to be one of the earliest adopters of FireTail technology to improve your API security, please also feel free to check out firetail.io/2023. We'll be opening that up soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or anybody on our team. Thanks for taking the time.